Hello, it's the beginning of September. Now the last video I did was the middle of July. I was hoping to do one in the beginning of August, but if you cast your mind back to then, hopefully you will remember that it was incredibly hot. I was doing bits and pieces in the garden, but I had to do them in little short spurts because you couldn't actually stay out in the garden, well I couldn't anyway, for any length of time because there was no breeze, there was no air, it was just so hot. I think down here it got to about 38 at some point, possibly 39, which is just scarily hot. In the greenhouse it was even hotter. I think it got up to about mid-40s at some point. So I did try and do a video, but even in the shade the camera kept shutting off because it kept overheating, even though the camera hadn't been out for very long. So as you can most probably understand that, you know, making these videos is not something that it takes a while to do. So even if you're, you know, you put the camera in the shade and you do a little bit and then you move it inside and then you bring it back outside again, it was just even too hot from the camera. It takes a long time to sort of cool down. So I did try, but the weather was too hot and the camera didn't like it. Now I was then going to do one in the middle of August, but cast your mind back to then and we then had torrential downpours, thunder and lightning, and then loads of really strong wind. I don't know whether you had it where you were, but that's what we had down here. So again, the camera doesn't like the wet, and neither do I really. And if I was trying to do some filming outside in the strong wind, the camera would either have fallen over or you wouldn't have been able to hear me, so that's no good. So that is why I didn't do anything in August. I hadn't forgotten about you, it just physically wouldn't happen. So anyway, it was interesting when we had the really hot weather, because all it was, you were just constantly watering and harvesting. You weren't even thinking about tidying stuff up because you just couldn't. It was too hot to do anything too strenuous. So anyway, we're now at the beginning of September and it's drizzling outside. It is still windy, but it's not stormy. So I can show you how everything is getting on, or some things are getting on. The tomatoes have been doing brilliantly. I've still got a load more to harvest, but some of those are actually starting to come to an end now, especially the ones outside, because it's actually started to get really quite cold suddenly. So they're sort of going, okay, right, well, we've had enough. But I just want to show you these chilies. These are my Razzmatazz Chilis, and they're really large. I've never actually had them quite this big before, but I've got loads of green ones there, and lots of them are turning red. I've got a couple of those here. I'll just take the camera off the stand, and then, oops, hopefully I don't press the wrong button. Well, obviously I did press the wrong button, and so I had to start it again. So there's the Razzmatazz up there. You can see they're doing really well. If you come down here, I've got some sweet peppers here. I've got one that's actually turned orange, which is ready to harvest. I've got some lovely green ones at the back. Oh, dearie me, sorry. Loads more chilies here that are growing really well and turning. So I can start to harvest some of these as well. I've got a lovely purple pepper just there we are, and some more chilies, and the aubergines, got lots of little ones here. They're not quite ready yet. Oh, actually that one is. They're not supposed to get big, so yes, I think these ones are actually ready, so I think I will go and harvest some of these. The okra down here, they need to be harvested. So that's the most I have ever had, which I'm really pleased with actually. And then I've got some melons down here, one there, there's two, I think I've got about 3 or 4. Anyway, so they're ready actually. So I'll be harvesting those very soon. They are actually now coming to an end. I think now that the weather has sort of cooled down a bit, they've sort of gone, okay, that's it. So they're finishing. So I will take those in and we'll most probably have them for pudding tonight. Now in the other greenhouse, I've got lots of tomatoes that I need to harvest. I've got a lovely little one, see if I can find it, that's actually got a little nose on it. I'm not going to be able to find it. I know it's here somewhere. I've got one with a nose on, but yes, there I've got lots that have actually fallen off, but I've got to harvest a load more of these. I've harvested so many already and they've been doing really well. So yeah, some of these aren't quite ripe. These ones here, these little purple ones, they're ready when the underside turns red like that. Okay, so this one isn't quite ready yet because it's still green. This one is. So they're doing really well. So once I've harvested all of these, then I think they'll be done. Now I've nearly finished harvesting all the potatoes in the bucket, but the ones at the back here, you can see that the greenery is starting to turn brown. So once I've finished harvesting the ones in the bucket, then I can start to harvest these ones. They've grown really well. Next to them I've got a fallen down sunflower, which was such a shame, but never mind. But I have got some turnips here which don't seem to be doing particularly well anyway. They were quite old seeds, so yeah, I'll be able to clear that area. And what I'm going to, maybe I should sit on there actually, might be better. What I'm going to do is, once I've cleared areas, is I'm going to get, a friend of mine has got a couple of donkeys, and I'm going to get some donkey manure, and I'm going to get some seaweed from that gets sort of thrown up onto the beach. So a friend of mine does that. She goes and gets seaweed after a storm and sticks it on her allotment. So I think I might do that as well. And some of the raised beds, because the soil has really settled now, I might have to get a little bit more soil just to top them up. So that's what I will be doing. But I've got the onions in the cage next to here, and they are ready to come up now. Now I have got quite a lot of weeding to do, because the weeds weren't growing particularly quickly when it was really, really hot. But once we got some of the rain, they were like, wee, let's grow. So they've started to grow really quite quickly. So I've got quite a few weeds, what I'm going to do now is I can now systematically go through all the beds and all the areas and the pots and things like that, and just make sure that they're all tidy now. So these are the leeks, which are doing really well. Some are quite skinny still, but they're not ready yet to harvest, but they're looking good. So hopefully, most probably in about a month, 2 months, I should be harvesting those. But if you look, if you look here, then I've got the onions just down here. Now you know when your onions are ready, because the stems that grow up, they fall over, and once they start to fall over, then they're ready to harvest. Now mine did fall over a little while ago, and I was hoping to get them up before it started to rain too much, but I was unable to. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do them now. They're not as large as they were last year, but then I think that's because it's been so hot. But they're not too bad in size. So that's just one that I've just harvested just there. So it's a hand size, you know, that would do us as a one night dinner. So that's all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to harvest all of these, And then what I'll do is where I've got my garlic in the garage, which has been drying since I harvested that, which has dried absolutely fabulously, I need to get all my garlic together and sort of tie them in bundles. And then, are you all right, dear? She's just had a flutter. And I'll tie the garlic in bundles and hang that up because that's all dried now. And I will lay all of my onions in their place so that they can dry for the next 4-6 weeks or so. You can use these straight away if you want, but if you're going to store them, then you need to make sure that they're dry. So it takes about 4 to 6 weeks or so. So store them in a dry place, a cool, dry place. So a garage is absolutely fine, or if you've got, say, you need somewhere where air is flowing. If you've got a shed, then you can put them in there, but just check them every week. And if there are any that are sort of going soft or have got little sort of markings on them, little sort of scratches, then you need to use those as quickly as possible. But I will, this is my job today, is to harvest all of these. What some people do is, if you did get it in time, is when we had the really hot weather, some people take them out and just lie them straight on the soil, and they'll dry out there. I have done that before, but I just didn't get a chance to do that this year, so I'm just going to let them dry in the garage. The courgettes are still cooking up a storm. They're still going really well, and I've got some more to harvest here. There's another one. They just keep going. In fact, they actually like this weather because it's slightly cooler now. Brassicas don't like it when it's particularly hot. So if you are having trouble with your brassicas, if they do look a bit sort of sorry for themselves, what I would suggest you do is to remove all of the outer leaves and any leaves that just don't look, especially if you're growing kale, a load of the leaves in the heat would just sort of go, they sort of go all brown, and it just looks like they're nearly dead. So just remove any of the horrible looking leaves, and now it's cooled down a bit, then they should come back. Okay, so there's a couple more. I've got a yellow one in here. Excuse me. Let's put that down. They have done amazingly this year. They've been really good. Oh God, there's loads of them in here. You sort of check all the time, and then you think, oh, that one's tiny, and then you look away for 5 minutes, and then there we are, and then you get some more. So you need to be so somebody put up that they had an entire shelf in their fridge full of courgettes. So you can saute them, you can make some courgette bread with them, or courgette cake, which is really nice, or you can just chop them up into chunks and stick them in the freezer. So I'm sure you've got plenty of other ways of sorting out with your courgettes, but yes, they're doing really well, and there are loads more in here. I've got loads of tomatoes in here as well, and the pumpkins are growing. I'm not sure if you can actually see. Can you see that one there? There's a nice pumpkin growing there. It's quite heavy actually. And the kale is doing well, and the Brussels and the sprouting broccoli, all in this cage here, they're doing fabulously. So let me just show you how the carrots and the parsnips and all those bits and pieces in the bean bed are getting on. This is the bed where I've got my parsnips here. They're doing fabulously. They won't be ready until they need at least one fairly hard frost before I start to harvest those, but they are growing brilliantly. If you're not sure whether they're swelling up, just put your hand down into the soil and just sort of move it around, and then you can actually feel the top of the parsnip, but make sure that you cover it up again with the soil. The carrots, we've been gradually working our way through those. They have been growing really well. So let's dig a few more up. I think we'll have those. I'm just going along the row and just digging them up and seeing what comes out. Ooh. And if there are any that are just too small, then they just go away. But there we are. They need a little bit of a clean. But yeah, good sizes. There's a purple one in there. So yes, they're doing brilliant. The yellow ones have done fabulously this year. There's a little hole in one of those which has been nibbled, just a tiny hole, but that's okay, don't worry. If you do end up with a little bit of carrot fly, then just cut away the little bit that you don't want. Don't throw the entire thing away. So I would just remove this, cover up those bits. Okie doke. Oh, what's that? Don't know. The spring onions, that's in the way now, isn't it? There we go. The spring onions back here. Again, we're working our way up. A lot of the stems have sort of died back, but new ones are coming. But even if you've only got this little bit, the base bit of the onion, that's absolutely fine. You can see that the green bit on top has died, but that's fine. We still have these. You can either roast them whole with a load of vegetables, or you can chop them up and put them in salad. So that's good. And then if we just move along a little bit further, and then you can see the beetroot here, which I haven't actually been harvesting a huge amount of this yet, but oh gosh, I think I need the spade. Let me go and get the spade. These ones they're growing so well. There's a lovely one here. There we go. Fantastic. And another one. So I'll just take that big one out. There's lots of other little ones there as well. But it will give the little ones a little bit more space to grow. But that is a lovely one. Really nice colour. So and a nice size as well, so that's good. So exciting. And then if we just move round here, then this is where my climbing beans were, but they got blown straight over and straight out. So what I did was some of them had actually ripped off. And I left them for a while because I thought, well, if they're still attached into the ground, then they'll still grow, but they just all wilted. So they'd obviously broken in various bits. So I cut them off at the base, left the root in because you've got the nitrogen in there, which you want to go back into the soil. And I just, any beans that were salvageable, then I salvaged, but otherwise they just had to go. So unfortunately that's one thing, but I've got some French beans which are still going. They're nearly coming to an end. I've got some large ones on there which I will save the seeds. The pods are quite large, but I've got some rogue potatoes growing in here as well. So they just end up everywhere. But anyway, so that's how everything is getting on. The flowers are doing really well. My little fairy garden. I'll show you the little fairy garden because I am very pleased with that. And here is the fairy garden. I only started to sort it out less than a year ago. It was November last year that I started to do my little fairy garden. So it's come a long way in just such a short space of time. So I've got my little path up there with some little blue stones so it looks like a stream, a little bridge going over, one of my little tortoises there with its little nodding head, and then I've got another little tortoise just there with his nodding head as well. Lovely cockerel over there, which I was given as a Christmas present from some people that I garden for. And there's a little fairy and a little door that my sister gave me for Christmas. and there's one of the little, I hope you can see it, one of the little brown doors there. I do need to do a little bit of a tidy up because the big tree at the back, it keeps knocking down all these sort of, all its old leaves. So after whenever we have a load of strong wind, then it always throws down quite a lot. So I have to come out and sort it out. And then we've got some chrysanthemums just coming into bloom there, which are fabulous. And then a little cottagey garden here. We've got lots and lots of foxgloves, which are in their first year, which will start to bloom next year. I've got Calla lilies, and I do have at the back, there is an apple tree which is in its first year. So hopefully next year I will get some apples off of those, which will please George no end. And then say hello to the little chickens. We've only got two now. This is Tallulah and this is Big Bird at the back there. Unfortunately, we lost Bert when it was really, really hot. She hadn't been well, and it was actually too much for her, the heat. So she's now buried in the garden. Last but by no means least is my herb patch. The basil, oh gosh, there's a weed. The basil is just going fabulously. It does all need a bit of a tidy because, as I say, it was doing fine, and then we got the rain, and then it's just gone, you know. So various things have started to go to seed, but all I need to do now is to just give everything a good prune back, and then it will be set for the winter period, and then it will come back next year. So that's really good. We've been having all sorts from here. It has spread really well. It's done brilliantly. I'm very pleased. And at the very back here, hopefully you can see it. Here is my horseradish. So yes, it's grown huge. When I got the horseradish, it was only two little bits that I bought from the allotment that I had in Epsom. Two tiny bits, stuck it in there, and it seems to have taken off and done very well. So what I am doing now, because now we've reached September, and it is technically, it's the beginning of the meteorological autumn. Although autumn in the UK tends not to start until about the 21st of September. But now, because the weather has started to cool down, now it's time to sort of harvest things. And as plants finish, flowers finish, or anything like that, then I'm just going to sort of start now tidying things up in the garden. So it's been a very good year. It's been a very successful year. Some things have worked better than others. I've got plans in my head for what I'm going to do next year. I've just harvested the last of the rhubarb, which is in the freezer. And I need to thin out the strawberries, I need to sort out the raspberries and get them. They've got their posts in, but they haven't got any wire going across. So that's one of those jobs that I need to do. So I've got plenty of things to do to be prepared and all ready to start next year. I know it seems silly that we're planning already for next year when we haven't quite finished this year, but that's the way you do it as a gardener. You're thinking, you're sort of thinking 6 months ahead of where you are at the moment. But it has been a very good year. The weather's been weird, but it's been very good. Well, I hope you've found what I've shown you useful. I hope you've enjoyed the little trip round to see how everything is getting on, and I hope you've had a really good year as well. And enjoy harvesting all of those things that you've planted. There's still lots of time left. So I will, hopefully, if the weather is kind, I will be able to do another update for you in the middle of September. Fingers crossed, we don't have snow. Yes, I will see you then. Bye-bye.